Do you have any time to go? Do you have a baseball at all around you?
I do.
Awesome. Let's go through your pitch grips because you are filthy, and we will. And I just love watching you throw. So let's go through each of them. You have a. I mean, well, I'll let you describe them.
Well, I mean, my standard four seam.
Yep. Is there anything you do unusual with that?
No, I mean, just recently, actually, like a week ago, I realized that like my fingers were kind of creeping apart. Some guys throw it here, some guys throw it fingers there, whatever. But like I noticed that my fingers were creeping apart. And sometimes what would happen, I think what I would throw is like that middle finger would take over, and I would get like this accidental like barrel finder cut that you don't want. So like when I started keeping my fingers together better like this, I started getting that truer ride. And sometimes I'll kind of get like, lately it's weird. I kind of get like a little like ride cut on it. So it plays though. But then I have the two seam, just like your standard issue two seam. For the longest time, I used to throw like a cross seam. So since I was like 14 or 15 up until last year, I threw a cross seam sinker. So that one seam where you get the two and then you just rotate it like that. So you have like your middle finger like on that side of the seam right there, and then your index on this one.
Yep.
So you have kind of both seams, and it's like a one seam. But I just throw the regular one now. I seem like that's more comfortable for me, getting better action. And then I'm not going to show you the change-up grip. That's useless. and then so curveball grip. And a lot of times, like with the curveball, basically, I started throwing this back in like 2015 or 16. I can't remember which year. And literally my objective that off season was like, I know I have a bad changeup. I need something to change speeds, because I was throwing my heater was, like mid 90s. Slider was like 87 plus. And so like I would throw nasty sliders and guys would still like just foul them off. Like I wouldn't get swing and miss on my slider because there was no like in my head, I was like, there's no speed difference. Like these guys like gear up for heater and it's easy to adjust the slider. Yep. So I literally started throwing a curveball because I was going to use it like my changeup. And it turns out like it evolved into an actual like swing and miss pitch for me that for a couple of years there, I was actually using more than my slider, and it was better than my slider. And because I would throw it anywhere from like 80 to 88. So like if my slider was bad one day, I would just get my curveball grip and I would rip it. And people would literally chart it as slider. But I'm like, no, that's actually my curveball. I'm just like hammering it more out front like a slider.
I totally remember that, by the way, because I did that.
Oh, yeah.
There were a few times where I called them wrong.
Yeah, and it was actually nice though, because like when you have a curveball and a slider, especially a curveball that you can add, subtract with, or even a slider that you can add, subtract with, if one of those pitches that day is like off or just not feeling good, you can use the other one and essentially have multiple breaking balls with it. So I basically get hold on, I'm trying to see, make sure.
Yeah, I can see
so
it.
The C right here, and I run my middle finger on that inside. So a lot of people will spike it on this side, like on that seam, they'll spike it like that. So when I spike it, if you take it this way, and I literally get my hand like a C, and I put it in my hand like deep. So my entire hand is touching it. Mm-hmm. And I try to keep my thumb on the bottom side or on the lace. Like I know some people say don't put it on the lace, but when I put it on the lace, it's not like fingertip on the lace. It's just kind of like sits in there. But like if you can get it on that side of the lace, it's nice because then it won't catch and like decrease your spin. But so it's just like a C, and you cut the ball in half basically. So you're right there. And then I literally just spike that index finger on the actual ball. And it's not like my nail, it's just like the tip of my finger. And then, like I said, when my thought process with the curveball is like I want to make sure that when I'm at foot strike, that my hand, my wrist, both my breaking balls, I try to keep like a stiffer wrist. I think that guys get in trouble when they get like real wristy with their breaking, even cutters. Like when guys like get like really wristy with the cutter, it's more about for me like good when I get the foot position, my wrist being like set almost like the ball is like facing the hitter, right? So then when I'm turning, I'm literally doing nothing with the ball from there, right? So like when I'm turning, it's already there, and then when I'm at fully R, I just pull it. You know, that's like foot strike, let it eat. Whereas like, I'm like, if you get long and then all of a sudden that foot strike, this is like facing this way too much, then your wrist still has to get to here. Right. So like, that's a lot of times where guys don't get there in time. They throw like a slurvy one.
Yep.
Back up a little bit, actually. So like the big thing is like, I try to keep like I kind of like cleaned up some of my arm pass stuff since all the shoulder injuries and since the shoulder injury in 17, and actually increased like all my spin on all my stuff. That made it easier for me to throw breaking balls. And who you're actually seeing that with right now, who's did it a lot more drastically than I did, was Jameson Tyon,
Yep.
who I'm buddies with, and he's been through a lot. So I'm pulling for him, and I hope that he has a lot of success. But man, you see, his stuff's been pretty nasty lately. But like I guarantee you, his breaking stuff is going to be better, because like the position that you get into when you're a little bit shorter, and you can get to like that 90, and then so it's like a wrist position thing. So if you're like this, or like this is like, curled or whatever, it's going to be hard to get back to there to like just pull it down out front. So It's just like I was saying with the curveball and the slider, like as long as a foot strike, I'm at that right position where the hand's here, it just slides into place. Like you don't have to do anything with it. It just kind of gets there, and then you're just pulling it, right? And then
what's your spin rate on that right now? Because it looks like a lot, but I can't tell you.
I could tell you what it was for my last outing right now. Hold on. My last outing, it was at 2930.
Wow. Yeah, that's sick.
And then the slider was at 2900.
Wow.
Last
awesome. Yep.
So, and that's one of those things that like all my spin rate stuff increased once I kind of cleaned up some of this arm stuff. Because before I was like a longer, more lateral guy that had like the big 2-seam and like slurvy slider. But then once I started cleaning this up and getting into a bit better position at foot strike, I mean, to me, it's like stiffer wrist, right position. And then like with the curveball, it's almost like the position you're pulling through out front. So I might be pulling to like my left knee, or like my lead leg knee, or even inside of the knee, versus when I'm throwing a slider, I'm pulling more across, like to my pocket. And so with the slider, this is actually a little bit different slider grip than I see a lot of guys. So a lot of guys like to go, I'll just do that again. This is my curveball. So the C. Well, it's hard to see, but
I can see it. Yeah, it's coming through.
Right. And then my slider, it's actually funny because for my whole career up until last year, my slider and my sinker were the same grip. So like my slider and my sinker, I would go 2-seam, turn it like that 1-seam. And then so with the 1-seam, you have your middle finger on that side.
Yep.
But for my slider, I would just move it right there. So my fingertip would be on this lace. And this is still my slider to this day. This has been my slider since I was like 16, 17, 18, however old I was when I was ripping them. I don't know. But like, so it's like a cross seam. So what I do is I have my index on the inside of this seam, and my middle finger, and the fingertip's not on the seam on the index. It's just on the ball. But that fingertip's not going to be the last one coming off anyway. And then my fingertip for my middle is on this one. So like I see a lot of times guys throw a slider on like, I throw it on this seam, or I throw it on this seam, right? But to me, in my head, I'm like, well, you only have one seam to pull on. Like if I'm here, I have both those seams. Like I can feel my index on this seam, and I can feel my middle fingertip on this one. And then my thumb is like, for the most part, my thumb's in the middle down here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it on a seam. It's usually here. But, I saw your segment with Darvish just talking about thumb placements. I actually do the same thing sometimes with my slider. So like there's times with my slider, whenever it's like directly under, if I want to throw a harder one, like higher velo, if I go directly under, it'll be harder. If I kind of move it up a little bit on the side, instead of directly under. So normally it's under there, but if I like move it up a little bit up here, it's almost like you get like a bigger break, a little bit slower, but like bigger break. So you can kind of control the break and control the speed a little bit just with that thumb placement. And then with this, it's like the same thing. I keep like a stiffer wrist. And then instead of like my wrist being like fully turned like this at foot strike, it's just like a little more like fastball. But it's not one of those things where, people always say, oh, you want to make the slider happen out front. Like to me, that's an old school thought. Like to me, if you look at the Edgertronic stuff, you're actually on the side. You're actually on the side of a slider. You should be on the side. Like you're not going to be like out front, or you're not going to be like cutting through it like this. Like your hand's going to be on the outside like this, because you want to get that. You want to get that bullet spin.
Yep.
So it's to me, I like having those two seams, that like cross seam feel, and it feels like I can get on the side of that better.
I like that concept, actually, using both the seams instead of one, because I mean, and I haven't heard anybody describe it that way. That's cool.
Yeah, and another thing too is like with that thumb directly on the bottom. I know in the past, like there'll be times when that one would like slip out, like you'd be trying to throw it really hard, and it's almost like it would just like slip out early.
Yep.
So that's another reason to kind of like scoot that thumb up just a little bit, like instead of maybe right in the middle of the logo, like just on the inside of the logo there. And then literally it just kind of helps you control it out front a little bit better.
Totally makes sense. Hey, when you were cleaning up your arm action, did you use weighted balls at all? How did you clean it up? Like what ways did you do that?
I did. Well, yeah, I mean, I basically had to like reteach my shoulder how to throw. So I was like, well, since I got to do this from square one, I might as well try to clean up some arm action stuff. And it was also like, I just wasn't able to physically have that long arm action anymore, because it was just too much stress and like stretch on the shoulder. So I had to kind of clean things up. So, I mean, I was doing a lot of drills. I mean, it started out like super light, obviously, with the shoulder, like just trying to regain ER, because I had like 0 ER. Right. Like, I mean, it was stiff as could be. And so like just trying to really regain a little bit of ER, even just from like little small bounces. Like it started out so elementary and took a long time to get to even just like really light throws. And so just kind of like, I thought of like when I'm breaking my hands, trying to keep my arm just shut off. I feel like a light switch, just like can completely keep it shut off, but keep it like as close as I can to 90 degrees. And then from there, it was like I wouldn't turn it on until I felt that front foot hit. Until I felt like front foot strike of land is whenever I would like. But like if I tried to separate and leave it relaxed, just leave it at 90. That way I knew that I wouldn't have to like, it wouldn't get long and then have to bring it back in. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, and even though it feels like you're at 90 the whole time, in reality, like it's not at 90 the whole time, but it does like shorten it up. And then like, it just was putting less stress on my shoulder when I was getting to 90 or less at that foot strike. And so I was able to actually throw. And I actually ended up coming back from the shoulder with more external rotation than I did when I was healthy before. And so I think that's another factor to why I was able to spin it a little bit better. I mean, I think it was a huge thing coming back from my shoulder. But another part about the cleaning up the arm action that I think might be harder than actually relearning the arm action itself is having to time it up with your lower half. Because when you have like the longer arm action, it's generally timed up with your lower half because you've been doing it for so long. And like, that's one thing that was the toughest for me this past off season, because I was dealing with the back pain that was really, really bad. And it would even like shoot in the front, like it would shut down my legs, you know, like, so during my delivery, it, like I wouldn't even be able to use my legs. So now that like the back feels great, I was literally having to like almost relearn my lower half. So it's like when you shorten up the arm, you got to sync it up with your legs too, which can be very difficult because you're so used to like having that longer action that like it goes shorter and then like your arm's ready, but your leg, like you're not to foot strike yet, you know? So it's like your arm's sitting there waiting. So you got to kind of learn your timing with it, you know? And so there's a lot of pieces to it.